You're listening to Girls with Grafts, a burn community podcast created by Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors, a leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting the burn community. In this podcast, we'll talk with burn survivors, share resources to help with supporting and improving burn recovery, and discuss how to prevent burn injuries. Here are your hosts, burn survivors and Phoenix Society's marketing team, Amber Wilcox and Rachel Kudlak.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Girls with Grafts. I am Rachel Kudlak. I'm one of the hosts of the show, and today, unfortunately, I will not be joined by my lovely co-host, Amber Wilcox, but that's okay because I have two amazing guests on the show today. I'm very excited to welcome father and a son duo onto the show. So before I introduce them, let me give a quick shout out to today's podcast partner. And today's podcast is powered by the Cunningham Law Firm, located in Phoenix, Arizona, and helping clients nationwide. The Cunningham Law Firm specializes in personal injury, wrongful death, and burn-related cases. And you can learn more by visiting cunninghamlawfirm.com. And like I said, today we have on two amazing guests. The first is Dr. Charlie McKenzie, who is a pediatric dentist at the Valleywise Health, home of the Arizona Burn Center, and he's joining us today alongside his son, Scott. Scott is a 17-year-old high school senior, outdoor adventurer, rugby player, and all-around fixer who's known for his kindness and inclusivity. When he was just 10 years old, Scott survived a fuel tank explosion that left him with severe burns and a long recovery, including 6 weeks in the burn center. That life-changing experience shaped both of their paths. While Scott grew into the resilient, community-minded teen he is today, Dr. McKenzie combined his experience as a father and a dentist to help develop specialized oral appliances to better support patients with facial burns, where he now continues as part of the hospital burn care team. So Charlie and Scott, thank you so much for joining me today.
We're excited to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'd love to get started with you, Scott. If you could just tell our listeners, I know I just read your bio, but just a little bit more about yourself and especially about your burn injury, and take us back to that day of the explosion.
Yeah, so I'm now a senior, and like you said, I play rugby. That's kind of all I do now. I camp and play rugby, but to kind of go back, it was 6 years now?
7 years.
7 years, yeah. So in July of 2019, I was 10 at the time, but my neighbor owns a gas station, and so we were helping out. He had one of those portable fuel tanks that go on the bed of the truck. Mm-hmm. And my dad knows how to weld, and he was like, hey, can I have you help me fix? It was like a little, not even a big hole. And so he was like, hey, can you help me fix it? And so they drained it, all the gas out of it. And then they were working all night, and I was curious and I wanted to help. And so they had pushed me off all night, and it was midnight by the time. And I was like, please, can I help? Whatever. And so my neighbor lets me jump in it was on the bed of the tailgate of the truck. And so he lets me jump into the bed of the truck, and he kind of just gave me busy work, making the young kid feel like he's helping out. And so I was holding a flashlight looking from one corner into the other corner of the fuel tank as my dad was welding on the other side. And then I guess the vapors, not knowing that the vapors had just settled in the tank and then also in the bed of the truck. And so it got really, really hot, and none of us could see. And then it sparked, right? That's what they said. It sparked. And then as it sparked, it caught the vapors that had settled, and it blew out. I was looking through, it was like a hole that the pump hose connects to, what you pump it out of with. I was looking through that, and it blew out that. But I had the phone in front, so I was laying down on my stomach and I had the phone like this. So my hands got the brunt of it, but then it went around the phone, so it saved my face and my hair, and but it was like a flashbang, and it burned, what was it, 48% of my body. About 50, it sounds better, but
you can round up.
Yeah. And then did all the things, stop, drop, and roll, which turns out that was bad because it led to infections in my legs. But now let's see. It was 6 weeks in the hospital, right? 6 weeks. 2 weeks were intubated. So I actually woke up on the 14-day mark where put a trach in. So luckily I didn't have to get a trach, which saved a lot of time and healing for that. So that got really lucky with that. And then it was 4 weeks after that of recovery. I have full thickness grafts on my hands, my arm, and then both my legs as well, from my knees down to like my ankles or my sock line. And yeah, I'm trying to think.
Yeah, that was, we say 6 weeks, and to us that felt like eternity, but the more people, the more we realize, wow, how fortunate we are that we were only in there 6 weeks, and that the success of his grafts were all 100%. He had no failed grafts, even though there were times where it was, touch and go. We weren't sure. So we really felt like we came out of that in a very fortunate situation. And as you mentioned, I work there now. And so we see a lot of situations that aren't as fortunate, and everything's not always a perfect success the first time. And it's not from lack of great technique or great, incredible surgeons and team, but sometimes it just doesn't go well. So we just feel really fortunate that, it was 6 weeks, and he was able to be extubated at 2 weeks, so he didn't have to get a trach. And so, really, but hard for any parent to watch their 10-year-old kid go through that. So,
for sure. Well, and Charlie, tell us a little bit too about, obviously you have a medical background, and kind of how that world collided as a parent of someone who just had a burn injury. How was that experience for you?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, so at the time I had a private practice, a private pediatric dental clinic in a rural town in Texas. And so I commuted each week, but at the time of the accident, I was obviously in town. And when we were there, burn is a different world, right? It's nothing I had any knowledge about, and so intense. But as parents, we were able to be in the room for all of the procedures that obviously weren't in the operating room, but all the dressing changes and splints and all these things. And so we were learning about splints and stretching and all this fun stuff. And the therapists were doing their best to keep us pacified as parents, because we're high stress. And one of the days, a fellow burn survivor had come in just to talk to us, and he turns to Scott and says, "Make sure you stretch your mouth so you can eat those hamburgers," because he did have burns on his face. And I thought, well, what's that about, Robert? You remember Robert? Yeah. So we thought, what's that about? So I asked Renee, the therapist, and I said, "What's he talking about?" She says, "Well, as the scars on your face tighten, just like anywhere else, it's going to potentially limit your function." I said, "Okay, well, so what do you do about those? What types of splints do you have for that?" And I always joke, I think they were just trying to keep me entertained, like, "Hey, go do this." And so they said, "Well, you're a dentist. Why don't you help us out? Why don't you figure something out?" And so I took that as, okay, here's my chance to help, whether you want it or not. And so, one thing led to another, and now here I am, still bugging them. I'm the cat they fed once, and I won't go away, and I just love it. It's awesome. So, so funny story how it came full circle like that. But yeah.
No, that's awesome. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about that too, of can you just, how did you develop, I'm not even sure what you call it per se, that like splint for the mouth, like how did you develop that? How is it used? Just tell us a little bit more about that. I find that so interesting.
Yeah, glad to. As you know, I depending on where your scars are, obviously, that there's a lot of stretching is required. And so when you're dealing with your face, there's the potential for scarring across this, your cheek. And as it gets tight, it makes it difficult for people to open their mouth. We call it microstomia. So small mouth is basically the side effect of it, but it can cause eye sag and hard to close your mouth and drooling, just all these challenges. And so the solution is stretching with microstomia prevention appliance, an MPA is what they'd call it. And so it started out, okay, well, what are we going to do for Scott? How are we going to come up with something? And there are some out there in the world, and they're all great in their own regard, but they weren't really ideal for Scott's situation. And so we said, okay, well, what are we going to do? And so our first idea was, let's make a balloon. That seems so simple. Stick a balloon in your mouth and we'll blow it up and it'll stretch your cheek out. And such a fun idea. And that's where it started. And we actually came up with a balloon design. But it was so hard to make, and it wasn't super easy to use, but it was a fun start. And it showed us, okay, we're on to something. And so as a dentist, I'm thinking obviously from inside the mouth. Inside the mouth does not scare me. It scares a lot of people, but that's where I live. And so totally happy to do that. So what about the teeth? How can we use the teeth to support stretching our cheeks out? And for burn survivors, the critical time is the first 6 to 9 months, 6 to 12 months, where the scars are still forming. As you know, you're wearing compression garments and doing all your therapies. Those are such critical times. And so we want to get it in there as soon as we can. And so we came up with some appliances that rest against the teeth. And then you just turn a little knob and it just advances this appliance and it stretches out your cheek on whichever side you need. And it's funny because other dentists that look at it, they see other dental instruments that we use that clearly inspired the function of it, right? And they're like, oh, that's a Wafflemeyer, it's called. But so it's funny how our mind, I'm trained as a dentist, so I think as a dentist. So we have 2 different appliances now that are mechanical. You put them inside the patient's mouth. You turn the knob and has a little measuring stick on it that says, okay, here's where you started and here's where we want to stay for the next 6 to 12 months. And yeah, that's what we do. So it's been fun. The Burn Center has been using them for 3 years now. And it's obviously been a collaboration. It wasn't just me. It's I'd say, well, what are you trying to accomplish? And they'd say, do this. And so we'd go back and we'd go this back and forth. And it took us a couple of years to get there. But now we have something that's that we feel is very effective, and they love the use of it. And they use it. There's other burn centers using it. There's cancer centers that are trialing it. And so it's just really been sorry to jump so far ahead, but it's just been really a special thing for us to be a part of.
No,
yeah, it's all about me, but
no, that's awesome. It's such the fun. The collaboration isn't the right word, because obviously it wasn't a fun experience what got you there, but it is just, I think, truly inspiring, and showing the ways to get back to the community and get more involved, even despite something that you didn't ever want to happen. Look what I guess good can come out of it now, and now you can help others. So And obviously, like to your point, facial burns can bring those unique challenges of different burns get tight. I know even like eye survivors who have eye scarring, that's a huge challenge for them. And facial burns obviously have unique challenges on top of just a burn injury in general. So I just think it's, such a cool collaboration that you're now a part of. And like I said, an opportunity to give back and help others.
Definitely.
Well, I do want to go back a little bit and just kind of talk about, Scott, especially from your perspective of what it was like post, hospital stay, just going back to school, getting, back with your friends, talking about the injury. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I was really lucky. I had really, really good friends, especially through my elementary school years. I had a lot of friends, luckily. So I had a bunch of support in the hospital and outside when I was released. But yeah, they would always come and even just sit there, would play basketball as I sit in my bed, and they would rub my feet and scratch my arms, whatever I was needing, they would help me out. So that helped out a bunch. And then as I transitioned out of the hospital back into school, the Burn Foundation, right? It was the Burn Foundation that they helped me. It's actually cool. They do a back to school, like kind of run everyone down on what burns are and how, like, what to do if they happen and kind of that type of stuff. So they did a presentation on my first day back to school, and they kind of showed everyone like, hey, like this is what happened, and this is what burns are. And so no one really, obviously everyone's curious, so people ask, but no one really was, I guess, rude about it, or like when they came to ask me, they like kind of already knew the rundown, and so I could tell them my story of what happened. But so that made the back to school process very, very easy, and it was good. So the school I was a social guy and still am, and so I was excited to go back. And Jason, another burn survivor, he was kind enough to take me in his Ferrari back to school on the first day. So everyone thought I was like the coolest kid, and he made me feel so awesome. And so that, just like the little things, helped out with school's reentry. But yeah, outside of the hospital, I had therapy all the time. I actually went before, how long was that? Like, it was like a full year of school, like 3/4 of where I would go to therapy. I don't even know, it's been so long, I don't even remember most stuff, but it was several days a week where I'd go, and then I would go to school. Just stretching before it all locks up and can't do anything else. And I feel bad for my therapist. I wasn't the best patient, to say the least, but they were very helpful and got me to where I am today, where I can go play rugby and ride dirt bikes and do whatever I want without any restrictions. But
that's awesome.
So at the time he was 10, had just turned 11. He's in the 5th grade. So such a critical time for a child, right? And this is another area that we felt so fortunate. We had so many people rally around us, and people we didn't know, and people behind the scenes, and fire department and police officers, and they really sought to come out and demystify it for the kids and the community that Scott was now going to re-enter into, and they did. If if there are communities that need to do, that are questioning, should they do this reentry program? Yes, it made all the difference in the world. And not just for Scott, it was a huge opportunity for all of these kids to be part of something. They felt great. They felt so good about coming out and supporting Scott. And it became this big unifier. And that grade, that group, is uniquely unified still and through their high school years. It's really a cool thing. It wasn't just Scott. It was all of these kids got to do something special. And it was really a beautiful thing to watch. Sorry, I'm going to rant here for a second, but at the time, this is one of the things that we picked up on. At the time, it was 2019 going into the election cycle, and media was negative, and the world, if there was just so much negative in the world, and it was easy to feed into that, and this experience, it pulled us out of that world. And so all of a sudden we were just surrounded by all these great people from all different backgrounds, and it reminded us, it taught us how great the world is, how many good people are in the world and that are willing to help and want to be part of something good. And it was from adults down to youth, and what a special thing that was for us to learn and pick up on.
No, that's amazing. That community sport certainly can make such a huge difference, whether, that's for you, Scott, or for you, Charlie, as the parent. And, I would love to know from both of you, obviously, that school reentry program is a huge, we support it. We think, all, ideally all children burn survivors would have some type of school reentry program available to help them with that transition back. But maybe for those who aren't as connected, what advice or would you want to give, tips to, whether it's other parents who are getting ready to have their child go back to school, or even the teachers and the, school employees who maybe don't know how the best way to support is?
At the time, I also had really good teachers. One was actually my neighbor, and so she helped out a lot with the reentry as well, and made it feel like I was just a kid coming back on the first day of school. So I got really lucky with my teachers, and the principal was also super good. Like, they were all just really willing and open. But they made it feel like it wasn't like, they didn't necessarily baby me, and if I could, in a way, they made it just, he's a normal kid going back to school, which kind of made it feel better. I still went to recess and hung out with my friends. And so, I don't know, I feel like that was probably the most helpful part, was just pretending like it's a normal back to school.
Yeah. So in that, there were so many important components, right? We had people reaching out on our behalf to the school. And so what they did a great job of was making it not feel weird. Everyone's scared. Even still, when people ask, how did you end up at the burn center there? And, oh, my son was, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Everyone feels that way, and they're scared to ask. And that's okay. That's a normal human response. But what they were able to do is have the conversations with adults and kids, and speak to everyone's level where they're at, right? So kids are curious, what is that Band-Aid? Gosh, why were you in the burn center? What does that feel like? What happened to you? How do you feel right now? Kids don't always know how to ask these questions. And so they were really good at framing those questions for them, that, yeah, it's okay to ask Scott this, but maybe don't ask him this. And us as adults, we're learning from that too. It was just eye-opening for everyone. Another plus that came out of it, Scott mentioned Jason. We love Jason, just such a great support to so many survivors. But he has this Ferrari that's red and beautiful and a sexy car. And of course, a fifth grader gets to be dropped off at school in this sports car. And it made Scott felt like a rock star, and the kids viewed a rock star. And now we know not everyone's going to have a Ferrari to drop the kids off, but when we can think of special ways to help that individual child coming back into it, so valuable. And the pressure that takes off the family, because of course we're scared, we're terrified. What are someone can say something mean, and whether they mean to or not. We've all seen comedies that tease people with deformities, and so as a parent, you're terrified of that. And so this program, if I had the ability at this stage, I would go and fund an entire one myself. It's so valuable for what's so important to people, and that's how they feel, right? Anyway, we love it. We are in full support, and if there's ways we could help, we definitely would. So
No, I love it. And I love that Ferrari, drop off, because it almost kind of, instead of even the kids asking like, oh, you're back with a bandage, but it's like, oh no, you came back to school in a Ferrari. Let's talk about that instead of just talking only about the burn injury. So I think that's, kind of a great way to like break that ice, like getting back. For me, I was burned when I was 3, and so I obviously wasn't in school at the time, but that transition for me from 5th to 6th grade was definitely a rough one. Going from like, I had such a great elementary school, my teachers were great, and my community was great. And then that jump of meeting like brand new people who had like never seen or talked to a burn survivor before, never even seen someone with scars, was definitely a tough transition. So, even if depending on whatever age, the child's in, even trying to bring back that reentry program, even at the different phases from when you're going from one school to another, could also be a huge help too.
Yeah.
Well, kind of on that same topic, Scott, we have a lot of parents and caregivers who listen to the show. And I think, I would love to kind of hear if you have any, again, like tips or advice that you would want other parents to know from the childhood, perspective of maybe some things that you mentioned, kind of like not being babied and not being treated differently, or just anything you would want maybe, a parent who has a newly injured, child, and they're not sure what to do next.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's see. Like I said, like kind of just treated like you're a normal child. That's at least me. That's just how I felt I wanted, and they did. And I mean, obviously it's different because I have to do dressing changes, and my mom and dad had to help me out with that for the longest time. And so there's definitely things that like I can't do by myself. And so the help was very nice, but I don't know. I have great parents that helped out with like my therapy. My mom would, when my dad's at work, my mom would help me with my therapy and make sure I get it done. And so just kind of, I guess, keeping me in check was helpful. I can't remember who it was, but they told me you now have a burn card where you can use it for the rest of your life.
Jason told me.
That was Jason. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
He told me I have a burn card, and so I use that a lot. Where like my dad in the hospital, my dad got me an iPad because I have a burn card. Like, why not? So it was kind of just like those things, like little helpful things. But
well, good news, Scott, that burn card lasts your entire life, because I am a full-blown adult and I'm still also using mine.
Awesome. Good to know.
Sorry, Charlie.
Well, Jason told him 5 years, so I thought it was expired by now, but now you just extended a lifetime membership on that. But yeah, to the point of the burn card, right? And so he likes to joke and say, "Come on, Dad, just get me this. I was burned, Dad. Come on." But we say it. He says it jokingly, and we don't. We recognize how difficult the burn experience was, but somewhat when we were in the hospital, we had another friend that had a child that had spent a significant amount of time in the hospital, And they just said, be careful, because your instinct is to love and give and give and love and love and give and give. And that's a great instinct, and that's a great thing to do. But you also have to find the balance with that, because they're still at a formative time. And he says, you got to be careful, because you don't want them to become like that. How do you say? He called it like a hospital kid, where that they just feel like they can get anything they want whenever they want. And it sounds mean, because we're not trying to do that, but it's still, they're in their formative years. And so we had to try to find balance and how do we give appropriately and not spoil to that he becomes a rotten stinker. And in spite of our over spoiling, he's turned out to be a pretty good kid. He didn't end up too bad of a stinker. So.
No, I totally get that. My parents, were, I think, very similar to you, Charlie, of, they kept me in check, especially when it came to that physical healing of like making sure I was wearing my pressure garments, despite me screaming and yelling I didn't want to wear them, making sure I was going to therapy and like staying on track that way. And yeah, I would get spoiled with, Dairy Queen ice cream after some of my doctor's appointments that I didn't want to go to. But after I went, I was allowed to go get ice cream. So that was always a win in my book.
Yeah, yours was
Krispy Kreme,
Chick-fil-A ice cream.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
One time I had tissue expanders when I was in second grade. And my dad was working nights and my mom was working days at the time. And I would get home from school and my dad would give me, I guess it was probably just like Advil or something to help with the pain from I was going to the doctors to get like the saline put in, because I had them on my head. I looked like Minnie Mouse for a while. So my dad gave me the medicine. We went to the appointment, met my mom there. My mom took me for ice cream after my dad went to work. And I don't know what my dad gave me earlier in the day, but I got so sick in my mom's car on the way home. So she had it's funny because we always joke, like my dad set me up for the appointment, got me there. And then I got violently sick after that one in my mom's car for her.
So you had to deal with the fallout of it.
Yep, exactly. But hey, still got my ice cream, so still win.
For the win.
Well, I know, Charlie, you were kind of talking about this, and Scott, I know I had this in your bio, but talking about just being a kind heart and being inclusive and helping others, and do you think kind of some of those traits came directly from this experience after a burn injury, or I guess, just talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of grew I guess I'd say sympathetic for other people with like injuries and really just anything. But I feel like I had always been kind of a good attitude on things. So I got lucky with that, and throughout the whole burn journey, I just tried to keep a good attitude, and it does help a lot, especially and like now through like even my patient surgeries that are quite annoying because I have to do them, and all the like there's a lot to get down on, but it doesn't do any good. So I try to keep my head up, and that good attitude from my injury is also related to like now when I go into annoying or tough things, it's like you just keep a good attitude and it'll end up a lot better. But yeah, so I guess that would come from it, just trying to have a good positive attitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting you asked that question. This comment came up often while we were in the burn center. Other parents would say, of all of the kids for this to happen to, who better than Scott to be able to handle it? And even at 10, he was was special, right? And everyone's special, and I don't mean it that way, that he was more special than someone else, but we felt honored that people recognized, okay, he's capable of handling this with as much dignity and grace as a 10 and 11-year-old kid can. And but what I feel like the experience has done for him is, like he's mentioned, it's created a softer spot in his heart for others who are also now walking on similar paths. And so he's able to relate to them. He's got a great attitude, a great personality, and so he's relatable. And now he has that bridge. He's got that connection, and he can uplift and build others in a really special way. And it's definitely solidified a lot of his already great characteristics. And just a couple of weeks ago, Scott and his mom were at the hospital meeting with another parent who has a 10-year-old child in there. And like, it was really beautiful for me to sit back and watch her be able to ask him questions, because she's now seeing in him what she hopes to see in her son, 7 years from now. And so really just such a special thing in that regard for these younger individuals who have to walk through it. And for yourself, for example, look what has come of your experience back then, and how you're able to help others and uplift. And for me, that's part of my healing, right? I love seeing him help others, and it's selfish because it makes me feel better, right? It's part of my healing. But it has definitely solidified and strengthened those good characteristics that he had.
No, I love that. And yeah, I can totally relate I'm Scott, I'm sure you kind of feel the same way, of just, whether it's sharing your story or just meeting, whether it's another, child that has a burn injury or their parent. But, I always say, like, if I can help one other person, or like one other survivor, one other parent in going through this, then it's all worth it. And Scott, how does that kind of feel for you when, you are at the hospital and you're meeting, other children and their parents? What's that like for you to give back now?
It was cool. That was the first time I've ever been, like, into the hospital to meet with someone. And I felt bad because I honestly, like, forgot most of, like, what, like, the little things of the recovery and stuff like that. And so they were asking me all these questions, and I remembered them, but I was like, man, I forgot, like, how, like, the itching and the dead skin and all that, like, just the little things. And where, like, the kid was asking me, like, hey, like, does the itching ever stop? And does the dead skin ever stop flaking off? And it was good to help, or like to show them, like, yeah, like, all these things are just temporary. And so it just kind of put it in perspective of how, like, I was at that point too, where I was like, oh, like, what, like, I don't even know what to expect. So that was cool. It was cool to help. Felt good.
Yeah. Well, and to, I think, Charlie's point that you made kind of right when we started the show, like, in those moments, those days seem like years, and it doesn't seem like time is passing by. But I almost think it's, like, more powerful, the fact that you forgot about those things that in the moment, I'm sure, were, your biggest concern and, biggest worry. And the fact that, like, you're going back now and it's like, oh, even I forget, like, sometimes, like, the pain was so real in those moments, but, like, looking back, like, that's not what I think about when I think about, my burn injury or going through this journey. So, but in the moment when you have really bad itchy skin, it seems like the end of the world.
And it's endless. There's not enough Benadryl out there to stop.
I know for me, like, every summer was going back to the hospital for another surgery, and those, like, 2 weeks in between the surgery and then when I could get my sutures removed so I could finally shower again, was like the longest 2 weeks every year. It was like 2 years and 2 weeks. That's how that time felt.
That's exactly how I am. And I'm a picker. Like I pick out all my scars and whatnot. And
yeah,
so
we don't ever have to go back for the stitches.
Yes, we never get those.
My parents used to make me wear those like huge gloves. They were like pillows on my hands because I would scratch and pick all the time.
That's actually smart. I love that.
I was forced to wear them, but it was for the best. Like I said, they kept me in check when I needed to be put in place. Well, I know we are going to be wrapping up here soon, but Scott, I just Charlie, I had one more quick question for you before. I just kind of want to, hear from you too about, how you kind of balance, letting Scott, kind of define his own story and his own journey in this, and as a parent. And again, like I said, we have a ton of parents and caregivers who listen, who are maybe newly on the journey and going through the thick of things. So kind of how did you balance that as Scott was growing up? Yeah.
That's a really good question. And I don't know that I balanced it the right way. I work at the Valleywise where the burn center is. It became part of my new identity. But when I think about Scott, and I'll speak if I can, just my thoughts. But when I watch Scott, like we go to the beach, he's in his swimsuit. He doesn't identify as a burn survivor. He's just Scott, right? And he's just been able to find that's who he is, and he's okay with it. I think you're okay with it.
Yeah,
I'm so okay because you present, you do it so well. But for me, now I work there, and it's a part of my daily life. And with these appliances, it's like I think about it constantly, and it's become who I am. And it's still hard to try to find that balance of what's right for Scott, and how does he identify in that way, and what's going to help him move forward and not feel like it's holding him back. I don't know. How have we done, son? Are we
good? Yeah.
He just wants his allowance. He's gonna
Yeah. He's like, no, this is being recorded. I gotta be nice.
Yeah, that's right.
They were good. I think they did great, and I don't know that I would change anything about it. But
for I guess advice for the parents is just it's really a moment by moment situation as well, and every child's going to feel a little bit differently about it, and everyone has their own in what's the word I'm looking for, things that they're self-conscious about, and where's their scar. I was thinking about it. I have a little scar on my shoulder, and oddly I was always self-conscious about this little scar, and I think that's just here and no one sees it. I can't. So I might have to respond differently if I was had more scarring that was visible. So I just admire. I so admire burn survivors and their resilience, and that they step forward and they just move on, and they don't hide in the shadows. They're just out there. Being amazing and contributing to their community and where they live and making their world better. I just admire it. I love it. I love it so much, almost to the point of jealousy, right? And maybe that's why I do what I do, because I want to be part of that awesome circle and such a great community out there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This community is truly resilient. That's I think the best way to describe it. Like you said, obviously there's really tough days and really tough, periods of times as, someone who has a burn injury. But once you can kind of get past that, and there's no, timeline on how long that may take you, but once you kind of get past that, it's, I feel like are such a strong, resilient community. We put ourselves out there. We don't let, the burn injury defined us. It's just, to, your point, Scott, it's just kind of part of who we are now. And, we keep on moving with that new part of ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I know we are coming up on our time, and I do have 2 final questions for the both of you. But before I ask you those, I just wanted to open it up and see if either of you had anything else you definitely wanted to share with our listeners today.
I don't have anything unless you do.
I don't know. It's like before we come on, I had 50 things to say, and but what would I say? I don't know.
Yeah.
Now you got me on the spot. I'm not sure what to say. Like the problem.
Yeah. Well, let me dive into our final 2 questions. So I'm going to ask both of you one of them to kind of mix it up a little. So Charlie, I'm going to start with you. How did this experience, how did the experience change the way you see resilience, whether it's in kids and families and yourself? How did it kind of change the way you see that word resilience?
Yeah. So it's a long game, right? Resilience is it's not just in a single moment, although it's made up of countless single moments. I loved there was a documentary on the Williams sisters, the tennis players, and one of the speakers in that, he just kept saying, heat and pressure makes diamonds, and time. It takes those 3 things to create diamonds, but you get this beautiful diamond out of it. And so as we can be resilient, as we can endure whatever challenge we're going through, and for a burn survivor, it's their injury, and for someone with other illnesses, it's, we all have our refiner's fire that we're walking through, so to speak, if I can say that. But as we can endure it well, we can come out better. We can come out. There's still joy in that journey, and although it's hard, the good that can come is still so real. I believe everyone has something positive that they can bring to their world, to their circle, because of the thing that they're enduring.
It's amazing. I love that. Well, Scott, it is time for our final question, which is our Phoenix Partner question, today sponsored by the Cunningham Law Firm. So their question is, what is one message you hope sticks with our listeners today?
Ooh. I don't know. I kind of, like, everyone thinks of it as, like, when I tell them, oh yeah, I was burned, they kind of, like, I don't know, I feel like they think of it as like some crazy thing, but there will be days I go without even recognizing and like remembering, like, oh yeah, I have scars on my legs and arms and whatever, but so just having a good attitude about it, honestly, and about hard things, like, but I feel like that would be the best one, and not getting down on yourself about it. Like, I try and go have fun and not let it limit me. So yeah, if I were to say something, just that, to have a positive attitude on things.
I think that's such good advice. And, again, to what we were saying earlier about how, especially in those initial hospital stay even can feel like a lifetime, but just taking it day by day or week by week and trying to find, those small wins, even if it can be really small for that day, but, trying to find, the good and not letting it stop you from, thriving and surviving after a burn injury.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Charlie and Scott, for joining me today. Thanks, Scott, for cutting into your summer break and hopping on the podcast.
Thank you.
I so appreciate both your times. And yeah, thank you again so much.
Can I put a quick plug? I know we're running out of time here.
No, of course.
I want to speak from the perspective of someone who's been on both sides of it now, from the survivor family side of it to on the healthcare team, right? So they consult us in the dental department to come over and help with some dental needs and facial appliances. And I want to give a huge shout out to these providers. They are next level. And if I could say all the names of everyone at the Arizona Burn Center, I would. They're remarkable. And what's so special is as a provider, when we talk to parents and we talk to the individuals who are going through this, we put on a face, right? Hey, we're here to help you, and this is how it is. And then there's this concern that, okay, now they go back into this operating room and they're asleep, and then rock and roll music's playing and everyone's being rude. And it's, no, they are the real deal when you're awake and when you're asleep. They treat everyone with so much respect. It is like a beautiful thing for me to watch. And it is high stress, high intensity. The burn world is very stressful, and they do it day to day to day, and they do it so remarkably well. When I first started working there, I had to go back to some of the staff and say, hey, I'm sorry. As a stressed parent, I hope I didn't engage you in a negative way. They are just so remarkable. So if you have a therapist or a surgeon or someone on your team that's helping you, tell them thank you. They are human just like you, but they are going above and beyond to make your world better. So that's my thank you to them as well. If anyone's listening, we just love you and we appreciate all the work you do in this community.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, the Arizona Burn team is truly one of the best. We, work closely with them, and we have so many great survivors and loved ones from our community who have those same remarks of just, being so appreciative of their hard work and dedication. Burn care is certainly not easy, not an easy field by any means. So we just want to give a shout out to all of those, burn care professionals out there, because truly none of us would be here without them. So we were so appreciative of all that they do. And I think we talk a lot too about how the survivors or loved ones maybe are having a tough day, but to your point, Charlie, they're human. The burn care professionals are human as well, and they may be having a tough day, but we appreciate them showing up and helping and supporting families and the survivors, because like I said, we wouldn't be here without them.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again so much, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Girls with Grafts. If you are enjoying this content, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.